Ever wonder what's hiding beneath your feet right now? Spoiler alert, it's way more exciting than you think. And today, we've gathered discoveries so unusual, they'll make you want to start digging up your backyard. In Washington's forests, explorers found a 120-year-old copper mining camp with pre-1905 Rand Drill Company compressors, a rare, fatal Widowmaker Model 33 Slugger pneumatic drill, and Pelton water wheel components. A storm-uprooted wagon bridge now stands vertically in a creek, its original iron spikes and hand-cut planks revealing the exact route these massive machines traveled over a century ago. Just outside Las Vegas, this guy stumbled upon remote desert canyons and found stripped vehicles, dynamite boxes from old mining operations, and mysterious cave shelters with fire pits suggesting hidden human activity. Classic cars like a 1970s Chevrolet Monza and an S10 pickup rot alongside deliberately chopped up modern vehicles, which likely were dumped or illegally stripped. In a remote 19th century gold mine, an explorer found a hand-carved tin box hidden in a bunkhouse attic. Inside lay an 1804 gold coin potentially worth $50,000, left behind in a mine that once produced billions. There sits an unfinished Soviet power plant where 5 colossal 34-ton 15D100 diesel engines remain frozen mid-installation since 1992. Construction stopped when the USSR collapsed, leaving these massive marine-grade generators gathering rust for over 30 years. So close to completion, yet never producing a single watt of electricity. This mechanical beast was found in the thick bush, waiting for someone to wake it up. Equipped with a rare 5-cylinder engine and massive heavy-duty rippers, this Fiat 9555 was built to tear through the toughest terrain. And the explorer is already troubleshooting the vintage system, determined to hear this iron giant roar back to life. These guys discovered a restricted Soviet military site housing rare reconnaissance drone remains. They found Stree's UAV tail sections, nose cones, and packed parachutes inside decaying hangars. Deep beneath the surface lies a massive Third Reich underground complex that was never finished. Inside, there are concrete tunnels, cavernous chambers, and half-completed bunkers designed as a subterranean city. This ambitious construction project was a desperate final attempt to build bomb-proof facilities before their defeat. In Nevada's desert, there's early 1900s pickup trucks with original inline 6 engines, wooden seats, and metal spoke wheels still intact. Nearby, a 1917 Fairbanks Morse hit-and-miss engine once powered a windmill water pump for what was likely a small mining settlement that simply vanished into the sand. Check out ancient cave dwellings carved into cliff sides that have sheltered humans for 12,000 years. These remarkable stone chambers feature hand-carved rooms, ventilation systems, and living spaces used continuously across millennia. On a Croatian hill near Dubrovnik's 1991 siege lines, a man uncovered the base plate of a 100-kilogram aerial illumination bomb capable of lighting a 2-kilometer radius. Spent ordnance and military fragments still litter the historical terrain where unexploded munitions remain a real threat decades later. Here, in the snow-covered forest, explorers found a stone crypt holding rotting hammers and mysterious liquids left by someone who vanished long ago. Moving on to the forest, metal detectorists uncovered an old hiding place filled with rusty tools. Their wooden handles have completely rotted away, leaving only the iron heads behind. This guy used an angle grinder to breach 2 sealed World War II air raid shelters hidden on military land. Inside the flooded chambers, he faced only giant spiders and debris, and while empty of relics, the discovery offers a chilling glimpse into long-forgotten wartime. A powerful bomb cyclone pushed Lake Erie's water back, exposing a hidden graveyard of artifacts. Locals walked the lakebed, finding a 1969 Volkswagen axle, a 60-year-old class ring, and a snowmobile lost under the ice. Only reachable by boat, this unfinished German World War II battery remains hidden in the Arctic. Built in 1944, the site features massive vaulted chambers and launch tubes designed to fire torpedoes directly into the fjord. It is the only structure of its kind in Russia, mimicking secret German designs usually found in Norway. Right in overgrown bushes, they found a massive Cleveland Trencher Model 75 ditching machine left here in 1977. This heavy-duty excavation beast, designed for digging trenches and drainage systems, weighs several tons and features industrial-grade cutting teeth and massive treads. This decommissioned 19th century stronghold still guards the coast. Here, explorers discovered a massive naval gun still sitting in its original firing position. The site also contains intact ammunition storage and complex internal systems left behind since 1949. Battle through deep swamps revealed a massive Soviet oil drilling complex. This Romanian-equipped industrial beast once extracted black gold before abandonment transformed it into a mechanical graveyard where winches and drill pipes slowly sink into the bog. The next find is an abandoned boat 24 kilometers offshore in 396 meters of water, but its passenger's fate remains a mystery. A grandmother's decorative rock held an incredible secret for 45 years before her family finally cracked it open. Inside the unassuming stone lay a preserved prehistoric fossil, revealing ancient life that existed millions of years ago. Northern Minnesota woods revealed a collapsing farmhouse surrounded by vintage agricultural relics. Here's a Massey Harris No. 60 combine, antique sawmill, and classic trucks slowly rotting among the trees, creating an open-air museum of mid-century farming. This Arctic battlefield reveals incredible World War II density. Flamethrowers, mysterious artillery mechanisms, and blast-shattered bunkers from the history of combat between 1941 and 1945.
Divers recovered 5 3-meter iron cannons cast in 1713 from Blackbeard's Queen Anne's Revenge wreck off North Carolina. These artillery pieces confirmed the pirate ship's identity. Next, drone views reveal an abandoned offshore oil rig complex spanning 200 meters with towering derricks and tanks that once pumped black gold. This explorer discovered a giant crane with an extended boom abandoned in an open field, right where construction stopped, and this massive machine was left behind. Inside this Belgian barn, vintage tractors and cars sit gathering dust. The owners simply vanished, leaving an entire fleet behind. This Tennessee warehouse hides a gamer's dream. Dozens of vintage arcade machines, including magic sword cabinets left behind when the distributor closed shop. Where do British icons go to rest? A rural field that holds dozens of 2.5-meter red telephone booths, all ended by the cell phone revolution nobody saw coming. Marine archaeologists raised Blackbeard's massive 4-meter anchor weighing 1,360 kilograms from Queen Anne's Revenge. This iron behemoth survived 300 years underwater. Spelunkers discovered a 1970s Renault R5 deep inside a French cave system. How this village vehicle got underground remains completely unexplained. A woman exploring New Mexico's desert found a mysterious cooler. Inside was nasty goo and bones, prompting her to immediately call police about the disturbing discovery. Homeowners uncovered a hidden decade-old door behind wallpaper leading to a secret room. But there were no treasures, only an electrical box and trash. Renovation of the old farm's floor revealed something unexpected. A hidden cave system that nobody knew existed for generations. These guys boarded the abandoned Queen of Sydney ferry with 20-year-old cars, operational from 1960 to 2000, and later featured in Supernatural and X-Files. Gardening in an Atlanta backyard turned creepy when someone dug up a gravestone of an 11-month-old kid, buried beneath what's now someone's lawn. Right in an old farm, an antique tractor sitting in a barn. A machine that once harvested crops now only collects dust and rust. Explorers discovered an abandoned funeral home left untouched since 2009, complete with vintage hearse and pink child's coffin. After the owner fled, claiming something sinister lurked within these walls. The Kala Kala wasn't just a ferry, it was the world's first streamlined ferry, a silver Art Deco masterpiece from the 1930s. But now it is sitting out its days in Tacoma, where its distinctive rounded hull is rusting away. Archaeologists near the Dead Sea stumbled upon a real-life loot drop. 4 1,900-year-old Roman swords hidden in a cave. These perfectly preserved 60 to 65 centimeter blades were found still tucked inside their original wooden scabbards. These pilots captured the U.S. Seawolf-class submarine surfacing through 0.5 meters of Arctic ice. But despite visible damage to its antenna from the breakthrough, the nuclear-powered vessel showed no signs of abandonment or distress. Picture this, dozens of American muscle car legends from the 1960s and 70s gathering dust inside an abandoned factory. This forgotten collection includes rare Plymouth GTXs, Pontiac GTOs, and pristine Dodge Challengers with powerful V8 engines still intact, potentially worth millions, but left to rust, waiting for resurrection. In a remote bombing range, an explorer spotted a metal Guardian. This tank rises 3 meters high, where shells that destroyed it are lying from long-forgotten training exercises. Imagine diving into crystal-clear waters only to find gravestones standing upright beneath you. South Carolina's Lake Jocassee conceals an entire cemetery submerged when the valley was deliberately flooded in the 1970s. Its tombstones standing eerily at 40 meters deep, marking final resting places now guarded by waters rather than mourning visitors. Ever thought smashing your walls for cash? A homeowner renovating their house discovered a secret stash of coins hidden in the insulation, including rarities potentially worth a life-changing $40,000. A 1947 Veronique rocket launcher, perches abandoned on a French Normandy peak since 1990. This 10-meter tall World War II era artifact, once aimed at a nuclear plant, stands empty. Thankfully. Coastal erosion exposed a 1959 Cold War nuclear monitoring bunker at East Yorkshire, UK, teetering on collapsing cliffs. This Royal Observer Corps post, once hidden underground, now faces immediate destruction by the sea. Explorers stumbled upon a French military tank hidden in an abandoned plastic factory. The unexpected armored relic, likely from World War II, adds intrigue to the site's forgotten history in America. A woman moving into a 1950s home discovered a secret metal safe hidden beneath a false fireplace panel. Inside wasn't gold, but a fascinating time capsule, including a 150-year-old newspaper and rare coins. How about a 20-meter World War II transport plane on the Mediterranean seabed? This sunken Douglas C-47 Dakota with 29-meter wingspan and other planes, creating a popular dive site. Some were intentionally sunk as artificial reefs. Others represent genuine wartime tragedies, where each one tells a different story. These professional explorers navigated a damp 1800s Nevada silver mine featuring a 152-meter vertical shaft with multiple stations, and found a bunch of century-old equipment. From Gilded Age luxury yacht to World War I patrol boat to World War II naval vessel, the USS Sachem had seen it all since 1902. Now measuring 34 meters long, this historic ghost ship slowly rots into Ohio's Muskingum River, its wooden hull dissolving into the water after serving through 2 world wars and countless identity changes. What about finding an abandoned NATO radar base in Greece, which features 20-meter satellite dishes among the mountain ruins? This Cold War site monitored Soviet activities until the 1990s. In a Miami marina, these once luxurious yachts aren't going anywhere. They've been abandoned. Half sunken and covered with seaweed, they now rest not in an elite dock, but in a boat graveyard. On the Albania-Greece border exists something from nightmares, the world's largest spider web colony housing over 110,000 spiders. This massive commercial web stretches an astounding 106 square meters, creating a white shroud blanketing everything in its path. Ancient Egypt rises from the Mediterranean seabed as archaeologists recover 2,000-year-old statues from the sunken city of Canopus off Alexandria. Their limestone features eerily preserved after 2 millennia of underwater slumber. This bizarre aircraft is the VVA-14, a Soviet submarine hunter that could fly and float. Only 2 were built, and this wingless wreck looks like a crashed spaceship from a movie. Divers recovered 2 submerged passenger cars from the Warnau River in Germany, resting upside down at 7 meters deep. Now these mysterious vehicles await forensic analysis to uncover their fate. The Bagger 1473 bucket wheel excavator wasn't just big, it was a 100-meter mechanical monster that devoured Earth from 1965 to 2002. Now it stands abandoned in East Germany and looks like a sleeping robot. Check out a 1959 Cadillac DeVille with chrome dulled by decades rot deep in forest overgrowth. How this classic luxury sedan ended up in woodland remains completely unexplained. shadows of World War II still haunt the Norwegian coastline, staring out at the North Sea, where explorers discovered remarkably intact 10-centimeter Bofors artillery bases scattered along the Atlantic Wall. These 1918 marked cannons were likely repurposed by German forces, with their massive mounting rings still bolted into the concrete. These are the skeletal remains of Bethlehem Steel, the massive plant that built the Golden Gate Bridge. This Rust Belt icon, producing 23 million tons annually with preserved blast furnaces, symbolizes America's industrial decline. In a surreal scene, explorers found a ship graveyard stranded in a snowy desert. And as you can see, Arctic ice doesn't joke. It simply traps and holds. What are the odds of finding an aircraft and an ambulance sitting side by side deep in the woods? Back in 2012, it used to belong to an airline company that went bankrupt and scrapped the plane. Divers in the depths of Lake Baikal found a car resting on the lake bed. Likely falling through the ice during winter, it's now a permanent exhibit in the world's deepest lake. Prepare to be amazed as salvage crews lifted the massive stern section of cargo vessel Cabrera from 34 meters underwater off Greece, using a specialized 2,400-ton crane after the ship broke apart and sank. While hiking off-trail, this explorer found the whole Caterpillar excavator. Was it stolen? Who knows, cause there was no chance that any construction work was being done here. What kind of person collects NASCAR cars and hundreds of energy drink cans in an abandoned basement? This bizarre combination discovered underground tells a strange story about the previous occupants' unusual lifestyle. In Kiev, a massive concrete flying saucer sits filled with the rusting carcasses of old city buses. This is Bus Depot number 7, a Soviet architectural marvel with a roof spanning 160 meters. Now it serves as a giant circular graveyard for the machines that once kept the city moving. Ripping open walls during renovation shouldn't lead to riches, but one renter hit the jackpot when thousands of dollars tumbled out of cash, stashed by someone who never returned to claim their hidden fortune. Where do ferries go to die? BC Ferries' ship graveyard holds the answer, where these once bustling passenger ships now rustling away at their final berth. Next, enthusiasts ventured into abandoned Six Flags New Orleans, devastated by Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Overgrown roller coasters and decaying rides sprawl across 57 hectares, creating a haunting post-apocalyptic playground. Is it a fallen UFO or a secret weapon? Actually, this massive 30-meter reflector is a ghost of a failed 2008 Spanish solar plant now left to rust in the desert sun. Here's a lucky guy who uncovered a legendary Ford Falcon wagon rotting under an old canopy. This 4.8-meter classic remains a dusty but automotive treasure. These are diesel locomotives and carriages from Kent and East Sussex Railway, which rot in UK woodlands. Their tracks disappear under the undergrowth, just like the rural railway service itself. This AH-64 Apache, measuring 18 meters, fired the Gulf War's opening shots before ending up abandoned in Fort Training Grounds, now preserved for visitors. Prince Charles once commanded HMS Brongington, Now this 34-meter minesweeper from 1954 lies half-sunk in Birkenhead waters since 2016, slowly breaking apart. Divers pulled a colossal pharaoh statue from the lost city of Thonis Heraklion. After 1,200 years underwater, this ancient giant was finally moved to the Grand Egypt Museum. After the next historical discovery, cranes pulled the former Chilean president's helicopter from Lago Ranco's depths after the crash during a flight over southern Chile. Just take a look how many Soviet-era T-72 tanks scatter across Ukrainian fields in various states of destruction. Some blown apart, others simply left to rust when they stopped rolling. There, a whole F-16 decays in urban Belgium with an intact cockpit still visible beneath camouflage paint, likely abandoned when nearby military training grounds closed. Miners in Alaska struck a prehistoric jackpot when a flood revealed a complete woolly mammoth skeleton. These massive 30,000-year-old tusks and bones were discovered sitting right on top of a gold mine. It took 4 people just to carry the heavy remains of this Ice Age giant. Next finding is a discovery of 1950s aircraft wreckage clinging to a remote mountain slope where downdrafts caused the crash. 10 people somehow survived the impact in frozen hell. Meet the Foxtrot class U-475 Black Widow, a submarine measuring 92 meters which sits deteriorating on the UK's River Medway, decommissioned in 1993 and still awaiting museum restoration. Thailand's Galaxy cruise ship, repurposed as Grand Laguna Hotel, now stands abandoned as a 100-meter overgrown ghost vessel where nobody checks in anymore. Mayordy's circular water tower in Wales looks exactly like a landed UFO. This concrete structure's flying saucer shape makes it the strangest abandoned building around. How about a yacht forgotten in harbor? Its hull's so encrusted with oysters and barnacles that marine life has completely taken over this small sailing vessel. In the ghost town of British Columbia, a massive Fairbanks Morse compressor from 1932 sits abandoned. This 3-meter, 4-cylinder beast once powered silver mining operations. Lucky explorers unearthed heavy safes containing a massive stash of cash. Now the mystery remains. Is this a hidden fortune or something far more illegal? Declassified KGB footage from 1969 allegedly shows Soviet soldiers recovering a crashed flying saucer with alien bodies at the site, 'cause skeptics call it an elaborate hoax. This discovered F-106A Delta Dart fighter jet, measuring 21 meters, already rides down the highway, heading to a Los Angeles museum for restoration. Rusted Sherman tanks measuring 9 meters still lie where they fell on Normandy's beach during D-Day in 1944. Bullet holes pierce armor, tracks are missing, turrets blown apart. These steel hulks never made it off the sand. Plus, scavengers stripped what they could, leaving behind battle-scarred relics that tell stories better than any history book. Accidentally in the desert, explorers discovered a Lockheed airliner spanning 38 meters, slowly baking under endless sun, right where it crashed in 2018. This 80-year-old Japanese World War II artillery encampments with concrete bunkers and gun mounts for 120mm weapons hide in Guam's jungle, completely unrecognizable. Deep in a Pennsylvania coal mine, adventurers found a buried train of old minecarts measuring almost 1 meter wide, with one still stuck on muddy tracks underground. Inside Detroit's abandoned Cadillac stamping plant, thousands of vintage 1989 to 1991 baseball and hockey trading cards fill forgotten boxes amid rusting machinery. This former auto parts facility closed decades ago, leaving an unexpected hoard from an overproduced collectibles era. Though limited in value, the discovery proves urban exploration's strangest surprises hide where you least suspect them. Treasure hunters at Trone's World on France's Somme battlefield unearthed several dozen live World War I grenades. These 1916 10-centimeter munitions can remain deadly over a century later. A hiker found this life-size statue sitting deep in the forest. Or how it ended up here. Tell us in the comments! Using social media clues and satellite imagery, this explorer tracked down a rare abandoned Saab sonnet buried deep in New Hampshire's woods, where she found the vehicle half swallowed by moss and dirt on a remote logging road. Originally orange, then repainted blue and purple, the decades-old car remarkably retains its original radio intact. After a violent cyclone, this nameless ghost ship snapped its anchors and was hurled onto the rocks, where explorers accidentally found this victim of nature's fury. Now let's peek inside an abandoned car dealership that still holds dusty Ladas and Kias, exactly where salespeople left them when the business closed. Beachcombers in New Jersey discovered a message in a bottle that could be the world's oldest. Thrown overboard in 1876, this 150-year-old note survived over a century at sea. Construction workers renovating a glass center struck a hidden safe containing an old bottle with some liquid. Nobody knows why previous owners desperately wanted to keep it locked away. The ghost ship MV Alta drifted for 2 years before slamming into the Irish coast. Now this 1970s merchant vessel sits snapped and rotting on the rocks. Explorers stumbled upon an aviation graveyard deep in the woods, where a RCAF Beech 18 Expeditor, Boeing C-97 Stratofighter, and B-36 Peacemaker nose section were abandoned among the trees. Deep in Florida's Everglades, explorers found NASA's abandoned Aerojet facility with the largest solid-fuel rocket motor ever built, left behind in 1969 when the project was canceled. During home renovation, these people discovered a sealed package hidden in the 1960s ceiling. It contained legal documents, photos, and military communications tied to the U.S. Air Force Korea deployment case. Dozens of weathered dolls hang from tree branches in a remote forest. This eerie find sparks theories ranging from twisted art projects to disturbing rituals nobody wants to explain. Archaeologists digging in central France found a German World War II bunker 10 meters underground with artifacts from 1944's Normandy battles perfectly preserved beneath the city. After a violent storm, shipping containers from a burning freighter split open on Vancouver Island. Beaches were suddenly littered with refrigerators, toys, and running shoes. An explorer found derelict amusement rides, including rusted carousels, deep in overgrown woods. This forgotten park was abandoned years ago where it shouldn't exist. Spanning 5 hectares, an abandoned train depot holds decaying locomotives and cars slowly consumed by vegetation. Trains that will never run again, gathering rust. Massive concrete structures stretching 2 kilometers still line Normandy's coast. That's World War II's Mulberry artificial harbors that enabled D-Day's Allied invasion logistics in 1944. A TikToker found strange alien-looking ruins emerging from the sand at low tide. These unusual circular formations standing out against the natural surroundings like something from another world. This forgotten port serves as a graveyard for dozens of rusted ships up to 50 meters long. Abandoned since industrial decline turned this maritime hub into a nautical wasteland. This next person discovered an old gold dredge standing with massive bucket rusts in the Alaskan wilderness. It was an early 1900s mining behemoth from Klondike boom times. This discovery is like a piece of space technology that has fallen into nature. A lone giant satellite dish, now only listening to the forest. What looked like an empty abandoned hall actually hid dozens of derelict 1970s locomotives. These rusting engines will never pull trains again. You'd be surprised what can turn up in the backyard of a retiree suspected of keeping stolen Nazi artworks. Yes, instead of paintings, police found something far more unbelievable. A real Panzer V Panther tank from World War II sitting in the basement alongside an anti-aircraft gun, a torpedo, automatic weapons, and thousands of rounds of ammunition. To remove the exhibits, they had to bring in heavy equipment, and the operation took 9 hours. In the end, the owner was fined and required to transfer the tank to a museum, because keeping such souvenirs turned out to be illegal. The last thing you expect when starting roof repairs on your home is to stumble upon strange metal objects hidden inside the walls. That's exactly how a real World War II stash was discovered, featuring the STG-44, the world's first assault rifle, developed in Nazi Germany and hidden there for more than 70 years. At the site of these ruins of a Japanese military complex in the Pacific, more than 20,000 soldiers, fortifications, artillery, vehicles, and supply depots were once stationed. Today, deep in the jungle, you can still see traces of the long-ago battle. The remains of Mitsubishi Zero fighters, American LVT-2 Water Buffalo landing vehicles frozen mid-attack, LVT-A-1 Alligator amphibious tanks, and Japanese Type 2 Ka-Mi tanks holding their defensive positions. Hard to believe, but this collection of Nazi artifacts wasn't found in an abandoned World War II bunker. It was discovered during a search of an ordinary Argentine collector's home. In a secret room behind a bookcase were a bust of Adolf Hitler, statues with eagles and swastikas, propaganda toys, and even a device used for measuring skulls. In total, the stash contained about 75 items, many of which experts believe once belonged to high-ranking Nazis. Every small town has its dreamer, and in Marengo, Illinois, that person became Mike Kellner. For more than 40 years, he had been working in his barn, trying to bring a real ghost of the past back to life. An enormous B-17 Flying Fortress bomber about 23 meters long, which he once found abandoned and taken apart in a nearby forest. The aircraft rusted among the trees for decades, but the man decided to give it a second chance. Ever since, step by step, he has been restoring it, dreaming of hearing the roar of its engines again one day. What you're seeing is the remains of the British steamship SS City of Cairo, which crossed the Atlantic in 1942 with a secret military cargo but couldn't dodge 2 German torpedoes. The ship went to the bottom along with a secret almost no one knew. Its holds contained 100 tons of silver coins intended to help finance Britain's war effort. For nearly 70 years, the treasure was believed lost forever, until in 2011, researchers found the wreck at a depth of more than 5 kilometers and carried out a large-scale operation to recover millions of coins from the ocean floor. A routine search for traces of World War II turned into an unexpected discovery. Under an old tree, instead of the usual shell casings and rusty buttons, a metal detector found 70 gold coins from the early 20th century, at a depth of only about 20 centimeters. Their total weight was over 400 grams, and their estimated value is around $24,000. It's a shame we'll never know the story behind this forest stash, hidden during the chaos of World War II, but at least we can enjoy the discovery itself. Sometimes relics from World War II aren't found underground or on the ocean floor, but in abandoned hangars, like this unusual collection of 6 Messerschmitt fighter planes used in the filming of the movie Battle of Britain. These aircraft were given to stuntman and pilot Wilson Edwards as payment for his work on the set, and he simply left them stored in a hangar for more than 40 years. Over time, the collection was almost forgotten until it was rediscovered and sold to collectors for nearly $8 million. Amazingly, after decades of sitting idle, some of these planes were able to start their engines almost immediately after inspection. Meet the Buffalo LVT, and the guys who accidentally found this amphibious landing vehicle from World War II buried underground at a depth of nearly 9 meters. This 20-ton floating tank took part in Allied operations, and after the war it was used to help during the devastating floods of 1947. Back then, several of these vehicles were swept away by floodwaters and vanished beneath layers of silt. And now, 74 years later, one of them finally resurfaced, almost untouched by time. And these guys only had to dig about 1 meter into the ground to find a stash of German soldiers' personal belongings, a whole arsenal of ammunition, knives, coins, trophy rifles, and even a fountain pen in excellent condition. Some finds wait for their moments to reappear to the world, like this C-53 Skycrooper Dakota, which had lain in alpine glaciers since 1946 after crashing into a snowstorm. All passengers survived by a miracle, and the rescue operation itself went down in history, because it was the first time aircraft were used to evacuate people directly from a glacier. And now, more than 70 years later, melting ice has revealed the wings, propellers, and passengers' personal belongings again, frozen all this time in an icy time capsule. The sands of the Egyptian desert still hide the traces of one of the fiercest campaigns of World War II, the North African Campaign. After the fighting near El Alamein, millions of mines, bombs, and other munitions were left here, buried under the sand, hindering people's lives and the region's development for decades. Only large-scale clearance operations have been gradually giving the desert back to people. For example, in the Western Desert alone, more than 25 million explosive items have been neutralized over recent decades. For more than 70 years, the location of one of the most powerful ships of World War II, the Musashi, remained a mystery, until in 2015 a research team finally found its wreck at a depth of about 1 kilometer off the coast of the Philippines. This giant, weighing around 73,000 tons and armed with the largest naval guns in history, 460mm caliber, was sunk by U.S. aircraft in 1944 during the largest naval battle of World War II, the Battle of Leyte Gulf, turning the might of Japan's fleet into a rusting memorial. In the ruins of a medieval castle in the Polish city of Nowy Sącz, searchers expected to find only traces of World War II fighting. But under a layer of soil, a metal detector hit a rusted chest hidden near the fortress walls. What was inside? more than 100 silver items, goblets, candlesticks, cutlery, and ritual objects. Experts believe these were ceremonial items that may have been hidden during the Nazi occupation of the city. Most likely, they were buried in the chaos of war in the hope of being reclaimed, but the owner never managed to return. Ironically, in front of you are the remains of the American aircraft carrier USS Independence, the very carrier whose planes helped sink the Japanese giant Musashi. Despite taking part in the fierce Pacific battles and even surviving atomic tests at Bikini Atoll, the ship was intentionally sunk off the coast of San Francisco in 1951 and disappeared for 65 years. Only in 2016 did the research vessel Nautilus send underwater robots down to about 800 meters, revealing the rusting carrier on the ocean floor, now home to a variety of marine life. This massive bronze eagle once decorated the stern of the German battleship Admiral Graf Spee, which was sunk in 1939 off the coast of Uruguay. But it was found and raised from the Atlantic floor by a team led by a Uruguayan businessman only in 2006. The huge Nazi emblem, weighing 400 kilograms, instantly became one of the most discussed World War II relics. However, the discovery brought not only headlines but also years of legal battles over ownership rights. Near the village of Gillsland in northern England, it's especially interesting to walk through the fields because here you can stumble upon an entire cemetery of 1940s military aircraft lying right on the grass under the open sky. Some of them look almost intact, and you can even sit in the cockpit of a rare Lockheed T-33 Shooting Star and imagine yourself as the pilot. Hardly anyone expected that a simple walk along a Polish river would lead to the discovery of a rare SD KFZ-250, a light armored personnel carrier used by Nazi forces. It was believed that during a retreat, German troops likely pushed the vehicle into the water, where it slowly sank into the silt and remained there for more than 7 decades. Look, even after all those years underwater, the hull still has its original paint, and the tracks and wheels are barely damaged. But do you know what's more surprising? After restoration, the Maybach engine started up without any problems. Right now, you're looking at what turned an ordinary expedition to search for lost fishing nets into one of the most unique discoveries from World War II. At first glance, an old typewriter turned out to be the legendary Enigma cipher machine, used by the Nazi military to encode secret messages, and thrown overboard in the final days of the war so it wouldn't fall into Allied hands. Imagine, it lay in the seabed for more than 70 years, and on the day it was found, it became one of only 50 machines still known to exist. Check this out! The echo of World War II still lingers even in a 70-meter deep abyss near the island of Vis, Croatia, where in November 1944, German anti-aircraft guns disabled several engines of a B-17G Flying Fortress heavy bomber. The crew almost made it to an Allied airfield, but the last engine failed, forcing the pilot to ditch the aircraft about 50 meters from shore. The crew escaped on rafts, and the bomber sank mostly intact, making it one of the best-preserved World War II aircraft underwater to this day. Check out this portal to the underworld that this diver is about to go through, just to find a place to hook onto this unusual find. What comes next? A full day of preparing the crew and equipment, securing the straps, and voila! The Earth starts moving so the world can see a unique heavy artillery tractor of the Soviet Army, the Stalinets 60, originally from 1933. Finds like this aren't rare in Poland, where in the final months of the war, the Germans abandoned massive stockpiles of weapons in bunkers, basements, or mines, blocking them up and leaving them for decades just so they wouldn't fall into enemy hands. For example, this German stockpile in a Polish fort, sealed in 1945 and opened 75 to 80 years later, became a time capsule containing an entire crate of Walther P-38 pistols. Get ready to be amazed because traces of war can be found even on a paradise beach like this one, complete with an attraction, an American M4 Sherman resting on the seabed off the coast of Saipan Island since 1944. Back then, it was advancing alongside the Marines during a landing under Japanese defensive fire, but it never managed to reach the shore. Look at what a true weapons enthusiast can do. A collector whose stash was discovered only after his death. Police found an entire World War II-era arsenal, grenades, shells, munitions, and even machine guns literally scattered throughout every room. It's not only impressive, but frightening, because the situation became so serious that they evacuated more than 100 homes and called in bomb disposal teams due to the risk of an explosion and even possible chemical munitions. After this story, you realize there are things worse than loud neighbors. This Belgian forest hides a strange sight. Hundreds of rusty cars frozen right among the trees. One of the most well-known theories says they belong to American soldiers stationed there during World War II. When the war ended, shipping the vehicles back along the ocean turned out to be too expensive, so they were simply left in the forest, where up to 500 cars accumulated, doomed to be slowly swallowed by nature over the decades. In front of you is one of the most famous aircraft carriers of World War II. USS Lexington, resting at a depth of nearly 3 kilometers. In May 1942, it took part in the Battle of Coral Sea, the first carrier versus carrier battle in history, and was fatally damaged by Japanese aircraft. After a series of explosions, the crew abandoned the ship, and the carrier was sunk so it wouldn't fall into enemy hands. 76 years later, it was found on the seabed together with 11 aircraft that still stand on the deck with visible markings. This is hard to believe, but you're looking at this motorcycle only because a construction worker's shovel hit it while digging on a job site. When they uncovered it, it turned out to be an almost complete German NSU 201ZDL motorcycle from 1934 that had been underground for more than 80 years. Amazingly, it was preserved so well that there was even a little fuel left in the tank. Later, it was discovered that the owner had deliberately buried the bike in 1939 to save it from confiscation during the war. Welcome to 2011 in Koblenz, Germany, where a huge British air bomb weighing 1.8 tons was found on the bottom of the shallowed Rhine after lying there for more than 66 years. Here's something to help you understand how much explosive that is. Before disposal work even began, about 45,000 people had to be evacuated from nearby areas to keep everyone safe in case something went wrong. This unique footage shows how 21 years of hard restoration work turned this pile of scrap metal, found in an overgrown forest, into the only flying original Focke-Wulf FW-190A5. Just imagine it. Enthusiasts rebuilt this aircraft almost from scratch, using rare original parts discovered back in 1989, along with precise replicas made to order. The fate of the SS Geier Sopa strongly resembles the story of the SS City of Cairo. And that's not where the similarities end, because the two stories are almost mirror images. Geier Sopa crossed the Atlantic carrying 7 million ounces of silver in bars meant to support Britain's wartime economy in its fight against Nazi Germany. And a German submarine made sure that ship would lie for nearly 70 years at a depth of about 4.7 kilometers, remaining out of reach. Yes, these are ordinary vineyards, but right beneath them, for decades, lay an unusual surprise. A British Covenanter tank used as a training target by Allied forces in the 1940s and then simply buried. And only more that 70 years later did researchers find mention of it in the archives and immediately began excavations right among the grapevines. For decades, one of the most feared artifacts of World War II was hidden in the lakes of the Arctic region, the Soviet Il-2 ground attack aircraft. In 1943, it was hit during an attack on a German airfield, but the pilot managed to land the damaged machine right on the surface of a lake and survive. The aircraft sank and lay on the bottom for more than 70 years with surprisingly little deterioration. Only in 2018 did searchers raise it, discovering that the legendary flying tank was preserved remarkably well. Now the plan is to restore it so that one day it might return to the skies. At first, a river always looks calm, but under a layer of silt, something interesting can always be hiding. In this one, for example, a rare World War II-era T-20 Komsomolets artillery tractor rested for almost 80 years. In front of you is one of the most unusual stashes to survive World War II, a collection of more than 130 bottles of rare 19th century wine hidden in 1945. All this time they lay here, just a few centimeters under the floor, waiting to be discovered. Until 40 years later, they were accidentally found during work at a castle. Today, the value of this collection has been estimated at 1.1 million euros. But that's not all. Nearby, they also found the reliquary of Saint Maurice, an artifact considered the second most important historical relic in the Czech Republic. For decades, a mysterious base on Alexandra Lane Island was considered nothing more than a wartime myth. But in 2016, researchers discovered the remains of a secret Nazi station, Treasure Hunter, built in 1943 in the Arctic wilderness, only about 1,000 kilometers from the North Pole. 80 years ago, the Germans transmitted weather data from there to help plan naval and aviation operations, and today only about 500 artifacts remain. Munitions, instruments, and soldiers' personal belongings preserved thanks to the Arctic cold. Imagine this. You're exploring the wreck of a World War II aircraft carrier, and suddenly, in the darkness among the frames of combat planes, a silhouette appears of a car. On board the USS Yorktown, which went down after the Battle of Midway in 1942, there really was a rare 1940s Ford Super Deluxe Woody sitting right inside the hangar. To this day, no one knows why a car was on a warship or why it wasn't thrown overboard before a battle like the rest of the equipment. And this video will make you want to buy a metal detector. Just imagine how many unusual discoveries from the past could be lying right under your feet. This is the Soviet I-16, the most widely produced fighter of the early World War II period, considered a true technological breakthrough of its time. It made a forced landing in 1941 and lay forgotten for decades, until searchers found its fragments in 1992. Restoring it from survival parts and archival drawings took more than 30 years, but in 2024, the aircraft, designed back in the 1930s, finally managed to take to the sky again. See for yourself. The ambush position of this German Panzerkampfwagen Wehr proved so well concealed it wasn't discovered until a full 70 years after the end of World War II. Call yourself lucky if you find an artifact from World War II, and a real winner if you manage to find something from World War I. Wait, what? You don't know what this is? You're looking at the first standard issue remote shell fuse used by German field artillery. It worked purely by timing, allowing crews to precisely set the moment a shrapnel shell would burst in the air above the target. And it became an important step in the development of German artillery. I don't know what these people were looking for in the forest, but I'm sure finding the remains of a launch container from a 1950s intercontinental ballistic missile definitely exceeded their expectations. I don't know how on earth the searchers managed to find a World War II-era T-34 tank in this swamp, but you should definitely watch the process of pulling it out of the mud. Wait, don't skip ahead. This isn't just another shipwreck, but something far more unique. The German submarine U-534, one of the last to head out to sea in the final days of World War II. British aircraft caught up with it off the coast of Denmark in '45, and after that, the sub lay at a depth of around 70 meters for nearly 50 years, preserving documents inside, crew members' personal belongings, and even experimental weapons. And right now, you're about to see footage of its recovery from the seabed, which happened in 1993. Impressive, isn't it? I think you, like me, had no idea what a World War I armored cupola was, and probably thought someone had finally found a UFO. Look at these artifacts. They were hidden in a cave along with other relics of the Ryukyu Kingdom during the Battle of Okinawa in 1945, and then disappeared for decades. You'll never guess where they were found almost 80 years later. Among the people of a deceased US veteran thousands of kilometers from Japan, and the people who found them made the only right decision, returning them to their homeland. But not all post-war finds bring joy to those who discover them. For example, these guys found an unexploded shell right under their feet while repairing the floor. Maybe you're not into art, but this painting story will interest you, because what you're looking at isn't just a canvas, it's a relic that vanished for nearly 80 years. This is an 18th century portrait of a lady stolen by the Nazis from a collector during World War II. For decades, it was considered lost until it was accidentally spotted in a photo in a real estate listing for the house of a Nazi official in Argentina, who had taken the painting there after the war. During a home renovation in Hagen, Germany, a history teacher made a truly incredible discovery. Behind drywall, he found a stash where Nazi-era artifacts had been stored for more than 75 years. Gas masks, party badges with swastika symbols, a portrait of Adolf Hitler, a revolver, brass knuckles, letters, and boxes of documents. It's believed that the building once served as a local Nazi office, and the items may have been hidden in a hurry in 1945 during a retreat. Either way, now you know how things like this end up in museums. Did you know that inside of the Austrian salt mines of Altaussee, there was once one of the most unusual stashes of World War II? The Nazis used it as a secret storage site for thousands of artworks taken from occupied countries. Paintings, sculptures, and cultural treasures were kept there, including works by Michelangelo and Da Vinci. Over the years, many pieces suffered little damage, and this treasure vault remains one of the largest rescued art collections in history. Take a look at the contents of this table. It includes 400 items discovered during construction work in a former synagogue building in a Polish town. Gold coins, jewelry, and a family's personal belongings were hidden from the Nazis in the hope they would survive the war, even if the owners themselves would never see them again. Finding such a rare German gas mask canister would make any collector of historical artifacts happy. But finding contents like this inside, that's basically like winning the lottery.
Buried deep underground, treasure hunters unearthed a red metal safe that clearly wasn't meant to be found. Inside the heavy box, they discovered packs of money, files, a handgun, along with other personal belongings hidden by the previous owner. The discovery raises more questions than answers. Explorers risked infiltrating an abandoned Italian military base twice to reach what satellite images promised were battle tanks. They discovered massive battle tanks and support vehicles, some with odometers showing just 422 kilometers, periscopes and ammunition racks still intact. One tank's cannon dwarfed World War II-era calibers, but a steel monster is now slowly losing its final war against rust and vegetation. In a high-crime area, divers pulled a heavy bag weighted with 97 kilograms of dumbbells from the icy 7 degrees Celsius water. Inside was a criminal arsenal, a disassembled AR-15, a Tech-9, and a revolver with defaced serial numbers. The shocked team immediately surrendered the 6 weapons to the police. The next finding is in a village field, a Soviet Ka-26 abandoned for 2 years. Only 816 were ever built, and despite sitting exposed to the elements, this one remains surprisingly intact with its iconic coaxial rotors and cockpit still in working order. A dedicated crew believes this Cold War relic can take to the skies once more. In a collapsing garage, this explorer found a dusty 1948 Chevrolet Fleetmaster that hadn't seen daylight in decades. The classic vehicle sat parked with its chrome grille still shining through the grime. Despite years of neglect, finds like these can be worth a small fortune to collectors who dream of breathing new life into automotive history. Metal detecting through an abandoned archaeological village turned into every treasure hunter's wildest dream. Diggers unearthed rings, necklaces, spearheads, and fragments of gold, silver, and copper resembling Dacian artifacts from the 1st century BC. A unique statue-shaped box and silver brooches with plant motifs highlighted the region's ancient cultural significance. Pulled from thick overgrowth, a military reconnaissance vehicle was hidden for years, waiting to be discovered. Restoration enthusiasts dragged this Cold War-era CVRT Armored Scout, a British-made tracked vehicle that could once hit speeds of 80 kilometers an hour. Now, it's getting a full restoration that'll bring this armored beast back to life. Inside an abandoned Soviet bomb shelter, explorers found a working-grade teletype machine, hermetic blast doors, and Rubin 3 radios, all left behind when it was sealed a decade ago. Yet the light was still on for some reason. Recovery teams pulled a 1980s red Firebird from the river, revealing a chilling discovery. A concrete block was found deliberately wedged onto the accelerator pedal, suggesting the car was stolen and sabotaged. Stripped of its VIN and license plates, this steel ghost was clearly meant to vanish forever. Right in waterlogged marshland, diggers recovered World War II-era rifles and ammunition preserved by thick mud for over 75 years. Each piece still bearing original markings from the battles that left them there. Professional explorers made a jaw-dropping discovery deep beneath a busy city. 25 old coal train cars sitting in a mine tunnel now flooded since abandonment. Each cart made countless trips fueling America's industrial growth before rising water and fatal hydrogen sulfide gas sealed them off from the world above. Jerome in Arizona went from bustling mining boomtown to one of America's eeriest ghost towns. Massive brick kilns, industrial furnaces, and strange, oversized machinery from the Gold King mine era still stand across the desert landscape, untouched since operations ceased. Once home to thousands of miners, now only rusting vehicles and hollow buildings occupy this dusty hillscape. This guy just found the skeletal remains of Soviet submarines left on the assembly line right in a derelict naval facility. This old factory serves as a massive tomb for underwater vessels that were canceled before completion. Behind the gates of this old estate, a French gendarmerie officer's entire life was left behind. explorers entered the abandoned home to find personal belongings, uniforms, documents, and photographs still scattered throughout every room, as if the owner walked out one day and never returned. Military decorations, vintage furniture, and handwritten letters tell a whole story about an officer who once lived here. The level of preservation makes this one of the most complete abandoned houses ever explored. Let's sneak a peek at a private Estonian museum housing legendary Soviet monsters of steel like the T-34 tank and bridge layer MTU-20. Once owned by the late Elhins Tors, this collection sits on an estate once linked to Estonia's first president. Surprisingly, some vehicles remain so functional that visitors can even book a ride. Deep in Utah's desert hides an industrial nightmare straight out of another century. The Sunnyside Coke Ovens, built in 1902 and once the largest in America with over 800 brick kilns, produced 347,000 tons of coke annually by firing coal from Horse Canyon. Abandoned since 1958, explorers can now walk through accessible tunnels past old furnaces. After nearly a century buried in a New Zealand river, a 32-ton locomotive from 1885 was ripped from the mud by a crane, the ultimate time capsule of steam-era engineering. At Kilpyavar Airfield in Russia's Murmansk region, Su-27 fighter jets sit abandoned on the runway since the 9th Guards Fighter Aviation Regiment was disbanded in 2009. Built in 1953, this Cold War base once intercepted NATO reconnaissance flights, including the famous 1987 incident. Now, decommissioned jets that outlived their service life slowly decay where they last parked. These guys crossed a busy shipping lane in a cheap Facebook boat to reach No Man's Fort, a Victorian sea fortress turned into a $4 million hotel. They discovered an abandoned luxury palace filled with antiques and fancy apartments, and despite the decay, this massive steel island remains an incredible time capsule of maritime history. Inside a factory hall, explorers found a massive tunnel boring machine built for metro construction. Over 6 meters wide, 35 meters long, 400 tons heavy, and never used once. Kayakers in open water encountered a mysterious submarine from above, raising questions about how this vessel ended up here and what's its story. Step inside a secret hangar where Soviet wings wait for the sky. Explorers in Lithuania uncovered an abandoned aviation hub containing disassembled helicopters, gliders, and 1982 archives. But not everything here is deserted. Some aircraft show signs of active restoration, and motion sensors plus a van with 460,000 kilometers prove someone still quietly visits. These guys discovered Iraq's forgotten rail yards with hundreds of rusting locomotives which once fueled the nation's economy before being abandoned to time. Passers-by spotted a random 45-seater Hyundai bus, a bus that was completely buried in off-road mud. Dirt and weeds have already invaded the interior and even the engine of this stuck giant. It was a submerged boat that became an underground boat. This 1957 Soviet B-73 was used to test the first nuclear ballistic missiles launched from underwater, and now it floods daily, revealing decaying machinery during low tide as people walk unknowingly above this historic missile testing relic. On a Lagos highway sits a Fokker 28 that was supposed to serve meals, not rust in the rain. Brought to Lekki Epe Expressway years ago for conversion into a restaurant, the project collapsed and left this jet stranded on Nigerian soil. Now, the fuselage deteriorates under tropical downpours while vegetation slowly consumes the landing gear and wings. These guys entered the so-called gates to hell for a final look at this legendary abandoned coal mine. Amid dangerous bad air, professionals discovered a hidden underground hospital featuring fine woodwork. This farewell visit captures the industrial majesty of a site that may soon be lost to time forever. This metal detectorist unearthed a sharp, beautifully preserved blade alongside a rare military buckle with intact leather. Found just 5 meters from a cavalry saber, this World War I era gear likely belonged to a dragoon or a pilot. While shell fragments and rusty coins also appeared, the stunning porcelain inlaid pommel remains the ultimate prize. Recovery teams pulled 2 rare World War II vehicles, an SDKFZ-250 and an SDKFZ-7 tractor, from the muck. Using heavy cranes and an amphibious vehicle, they spent 3 days desludging the site. And surprisingly, the 250 is in such great condition that they aim to restore it to full working order. A regular barn find revealed a police cruiser with its light bar buried under an old shack for years, and the lucky discoverer immediately turned it into his most ambitious restoration project yet. This Volkswagen enthusiast tracked down a rare Swedish snow track, one of only 2,265 made, powered by a Volkswagen Beetle engine, dead for 5 years, but with massive rubber tracks built to conquer deep snow and even Antarctic expeditions. After 74 years on a lake bottom, the Bf-109G2 was pulled from the water, still wearing traces of Luftwaffe winter camouflage from when its pilot belly landed on frozen ice in 1944. Recovery teams salvaged massive gold ingots from the shipwrecked SS Central America. This legendary haul included ingot number 4,244, revealing a fortune hidden deep underwater. Now, let's head back to 1997, where crews salvaged the sunken Project 670 Skat nuclear submarine off Kamchatka. This operation discovered a whole Soviet vessel on the ocean floor. Near Nevada's ghost town, this old bus sits alongside a Toyota wagon and a miner's cabin, all packed with personal belongings. Sadly, the hospital papers, a checkbook, and dog fur suggest an elderly, off-grid prospector lived here until 2019 before leaving due to possible health problems. And now, flash floods threaten to erase his last place of residence forever. This grainy footage shows helicopters transporting a mysterious saucer-shaped object. Is this a secret military craft or an actual UFO? In a Russian forest was found a mysterious 18-meter fiberglass sphere, believed to be a Cold War radar dome dropped from a helicopter when its cable snapped mid-transport. Now, venture into a field of decaying giants. This UK graveyard is packed with rusting excavators, telehandlers, and tractors slowly being reclaimed by nature. Explorers unearthed a strange, saucer-shaped object buried deep in the woods. Is it a petrified ancient UFO or just a bizarre machine? What's your take? During a walk, hikers stumbled upon a classic military truck forgotten in the woods. And after long service, this beast has been reclaimed by nature for decades. A kayaker faced the SS Selma, a massive historical oil tanker. Launched the day World War I ended, this military beast never saw combat and worked as a civilian vessel until its last day. This driver stopped for UFOs by the road only to find quirky cafe decorations. Or maybe they're just hungry intergalactic tourists grabbing a bite. Jackpot at sea. A search team pulled a lost shipping container from the waves only to find it stuffed with a fortune in brand new iPhones. This fishing vessel was finally pulled from the Atlantic Ocean after a year. The 23-meter Susan Rose sank in 2023 and was recovered just off the New Jersey coast. What looks like a mysterious hut in the middle of the woods is actually Indiana University's Night Ridge Observatory, built in 1936. This abandoned brick dome once housed a powerful telescope for scanning the night sky, but a fallen tree smashed through the rotating dome's shutter, letting nature creep inside the building. This dump truck was retrieved from the bottom looking like a swamp creature, caked in mud so thick you'd never guess what color it used to be. Inside the RAF base in the UK, explorers hiked for hours through marshland to reach a secret practice airfield packed with Cold War relics. Among the finds, a Soviet Su-22M fighter bomber with mock torpedoes still attached, French Dassault Mystère 4 jets, American T-33 shooting stars, and a remarkably intact Mi-24 Hind attack helicopter with its cockpit still padlocked shut. Crumbling skeletons of old ships and a lone vessel stranded on sand. That's what beachgoers find instead of seagulls on this stranded beach. Nearly a century old and still standing, this 1927 engine was discovered untouched, a mechanical relic from an era when machines were built to outlast generations. Imagine digging in the mud and hitting the handlebars of a complete motorcycle. These guys unearthed a 1985 dirt bike that had been buried underground for decades. Remarkably, the frame and engine were largely intact, sparking a restoration project to make this zombie bike ride again. From the sky, it looks like a parking lot for giants, but this is the famous Mojave Aircraft Graveyard. Dozens of massive Boeing 747s and commercial airliners sit lined up in the desert, stripped of their engines and valuable electronics. The dry desert air preserves these aluminum giants, which wait to be scrapped or cannibalized for parts. Bunker Valentin near Bremen is Germany's largest freestanding bunker, stretching 426 meters long with walls 4.5 meters thick. Built by over 10,000 workers between 1943 and 45, it was designed to assemble Type XXI U-boats on a massive production line. But that didn't happen, as Allied bombers penetrated the 7-meter roof in March 1945, and not a single submarine was ever built inside. Beneath the surface, a mysterious disc-shaped object was captured in the water looking exactly like a submerged flying saucer, but its true origin remains unknown. Here was uncovered a Soviet Su-17 variable sweep-wing fighter jet inside a forgotten aircraft maintenance facility. Its 19-meter fuselage is still wearing faded camouflage paint. A classic 1958 Austin A40 Farina was discovered sleeping in a collapsing wooden barn. This time capsule car had been parked and untouched for 43 years, covered under the roots. Trekkers in the dense Cambodian jungle fought through vegetation to find the shattered remains of a plane crash. The twisted fuselage lies exactly where it fell, consumed by the rainforest. Check out a crumbling UK train depot, where was discovered vintage railway carriages spanning decades, including a 1960s Mark I first-class car with private booths, ornate fixtures, and elegance that puts modern trains to shame. A fully equipped buffet car still had its compact kitchen, but sitting beside active rail lines, this time capsule may not survive much longer. Its prime location makes demolition more likely than restoration. A hiker exploring off-trail discovered the abandoned aircraft hidden in the undergrowth. The aluminum body is surprisingly intact, looking like it made an emergency landing between the trees. While metal detecting in the woods, a researcher dug up a rusted rifle. The wooden stock had rotted away, and the metal barrel and mechanism were so worn down by time that it was unrecognizable. Welcome to the New Mexico desert, where hundreds of commercial jets sit baking in the sun at the Roswell Industrial Air Center. These retired planes are stored here because the dry climate prevents them from rusting. This is the ultimate ghost town, the abandoned city of Pripyat, frozen in 1986 after the Chernobyl disaster. Explorers walked through the iconic amusement park where the yellow Ferris wheel still stands, never having carried a single paying passenger. Apartment blocks remain filled with furniture and toys in a chilling snapshot of the moment 50,000 people fled for their lives. Deep in the woods, someone stumbled upon a graveyard of classic cars from the mid-20th century. Dozens of vehicles, including vintage Fords and Chevys, sit rusting away with trees growing right through their engine bays. It's a pity that so many valuable cars were left behind in the forest and can't be revived. The next find is from 1952, an underground cheese cellar. Explorers descended into the dark corridors to find original wooden aging racks still standing alongside rusted equipment and collapsed ceiling sections. The air still carries a faint musty scent, or maybe it's a 100-year-old smell of the thousands of cheese wheels that once ripened here. This UK car graveyard holds dozens of classics, from a rare Model T Ford to a manual Rover 2000 1930s coupes with just 49,000 miles, and Austin Cambridges with hand-finished steel trim. But the keys still dangle from the ignition, a sign that whoever owned this collection simply walked away, leaving an entire era of history to slowly fade away. And that wraps up today's treasure hunt. What was the best find you ever made? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe so you never miss our next adventure. Catch you in the next video.